Today's webinar is a live interview with 3C's project manager, and this is the second instalment of a series of 4 on Spotlight on Success. The panel today will be myself, Chris Dobinson, I'm the iplanit consultant, and I will be interviewing Debbie Allardyce, 3C's iplanit project manager.
I'm Debbie and I work at 3C's as our iplanit project manager, as Chris said. So just to give you a little bit of an intro to 3C's, we are a medium-sized organisation that's been around since '93, and we're based in South East London, and we support people with learning disabilities and mental health challenges, and within that there's a range of people we support, including people with mild learning disabilities, profound learning disabilities, sensory and physical disabilities, and also a range of mental health diagnoses as well. So at 3C's we've got a good history with person-centred planning. We were one of the national pilots for person-centred planning back in the 2000s. And when Jo Clare, our current chief executive, arrived in 2008, person-centred planning was happening, and she could see that there was good person-centred planning happening, but she could see that there was a need for a system that would really help us to deliver successful outcomes for people, and that we were able to really and truly evidence that. So we got offered the opportunity to be involved in the development of iplanit along with some other providers, and we invested in it because we wanted a product that would ensure people were at the centre of their support. So that's really how we got involved with Aspirico and Paradigm in those early days, and some of the people that we support and staff also inputted into the original design of iplanit.
Yeah, thank you for that, Debbie. With all that in mind, could you just tell us what was the step-by-step approach for implementing iplanit?
Okay, so back in 2009 I was Jo Clare's executive assistant, and she asked me to project manage the rollout of iplanit back then at the beginning. So Jo and I had a lot of discussions on how we should approach the rollout, and as with any project plan, obviously you've got to identify challenges and risks and work out the resources you need. So there was lots of preparation about what we needed to have in place before we could roll out. And the main thing for us at the time was IT infrastructure and the IT skills of staff. So back then we didn't have computers in every project. Our supported living projects in particular didn't have any computers, and this formed part of our IT strategy that we rolled out before the iplanit implementation. So that was really key, because of course IT access is crucial for using iplanit and embedding it fully in services.
Yeah.
So once IT was in place, we also realised that if we tried to do everything first, so everyone being trained, using all the different areas of iplanit, that we would fail. So we started out small. We focused on all the achievable targets with clear milestones. So first of all we decided to focus just on the outcomes part of iplanit mainly. We wanted to simplify it so that it was easier for staff to understand. And we decided we'd just continue to use our own 3C's plan templates rather than using the iplanit plan templates. And what we did, and we still do actually, is extract all the outcomes from plans and assessments and record them as outcomes, so they're still trackable within the iplanit system, but we upload the plans and assessments into the media section of iplanit so that we can access all that information, but the important bits, the outcomes, are trackable within the system. So our initially we wanted to focus on person-centred outcomes rather than the important for stuff, so the staff really had in mind what people wanted, so what was important to them. I think that particularly was a huge help in a cultural shift at the organisation about really focusing on people being at the centre of their support, thinking about all that stuff that really was important to them. So I think people had been having good support, good outcomes, but there was a bit of sort of habitual outcomes, if you like. So perhaps someone might have gone to the same venue every year for their birthday, whereas by focusing on what was really important to the person, we may have then realised that that person wanted to try different things every birthday. So yeah, that was a big shift. We broke down the plan into phases. So we started with a pilot where we piloted in a couple of projects first, just so that we could iron out any issues we might have and also understand how the system would work for us, and maybe we did a bit of configuration at that stage as well. And then we had the getting started phase, which was 10 weeks, and we wanted in that phase of time to get everyone we support onto the system and staff. And we also had a target of everyone we support having at least one outcome on there.
Yeah, I think it's quite important really to be getting that approach right.
Yeah.
Myself, like you say, from going, it would have been really hard to roll it out right across the organisation, whereas the idea of you using a small pilot and in a small area worked well for you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it just meant that we could, it was almost like a dry run, you know, then we could just spot anything that we needed to think about when we were rolling it out elsewhere and training staff and so forth. So yeah, after that, the getting started phase, we had a 3-month period called up and running, where we expected that everyone was using iplanit, that everyone we support's outcomes were recorded on there, that there were images uploaded for people, and that we started looking at the reports available. So we started looking initially just at the individual outcomes reports. And then the third and final stage of our implementation was called Way of Life, which is, you know, what it says. We wanted iplanit to be fully embedded in it as the place to record outcomes and information about people we support. And so that was our target for that to be in place, was within 18 months of the rollout. So we did give ourselves quite a long time to embed it. In that period we also ran a family pilot, so we had identified some family members that had access to IT and wanted to try out iplanit, were interested. So we set them up with guest accounts to see how that might work. We also ran some drop-in sessions for people we support with a volunteer, where she would help people we support to have a look around their iplanit accounts. She also produced a manual for them as well, which was an easy read. And also we designed our own in-house iplanit training program as well for staff. But the most important thing about how we did it, I think, was that we had really clear targets and milestones, and we made sure that staff were really aware of what those milestones and targets were, and we fed back about how we were doing with our targets and just kept keeping it in view, kept talking about iplanit, making it inescapable as such, so that it just became something that everyone talked about, you know.
Yeah, because I would have thought implementing something like iplanit, obviously it being a new system, you have to handle it in the right way. If you can't go gung-ho, like you say, you had a stepped approach, and I think that worked for 3Cs, and it was very structured in the way that you did things.
Yeah, yeah. I think we didn't want to overwhelm people, because I think, you know, staff can get really overwhelmed by new systems. And for us, yeah, that really helped us to kind of embed it slowly into the services, but also slowly and gradually, but also strongly. You know, it was something that we were determined to make work.
Yeah, and were you measuring success at each stage?
Yes, yeah, we did. So we measured in percentages, you know, where we were with our targets. So for example, I think the first stage we had this target of getting everyone onto iplanit and everyone having an outcome, and so we recorded that and we shared I think we did really well. I think we got to about 94% of people on iplanit within the 10 weeks, and of those people, I think, and I'd have to ask Joe to answer this question, but I think we were at about 96% of those on there had one outcome at least. And I think sharing that with staff was really motivating for them.
Yeah, because I would have thought with, like you say, implementing a new system is getting the staff on board and making them feel that what you're achieving is for the better for individuals supported.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that there were lots of strong messages around that. You know, this was, I think that's another thing about iplanit that we've found is that it's not just about, I mean, obviously the person is at the centre of iplanit, but I think staff have realised that it's also a really good way of them showing and demonstrating the good support that they're offering people as well. It's a way of them almost showing off their skills and showing off the good support they're offering. And from that we have, you know, since we started, we've had awards for staff and people we support to recognise people's achievements, and we use iplanit as a basis for the evidence of those awards.
Yeah. So how did you go about training the staff and individuals?
Okay, so training, initially Espirico came and did a few sessions with managers and key staff, so including myself, so that we just learned about the basics of iplanit.
Yeah.
And then we wanted to take that on ourselves because we wanted to do it in a way that was very much a 3Cs training program, so that we could use our own terminologies, our own approach really, so that it, again, it kind of embedding it into the 3Cs culture, if you like. So we, instead of training all staff, we identified staff that were either really enthusiastic about IT and or really good and enthusiastic about iplanit, and we called these the iplanit experts. So we got them trained up, and we had at least 1 or 2 iplanit experts in every project, so that we knew that iplanit could run in every project and that those iplanit experts could support the rest of their staff team to start learning to use it, because we accepted quite early on that there were quite a few staff that either didn't want to use iplanit or couldn't use iplanit at that stage, because this was 6 years ago and the IT skills of staff have come on quite a lot since then. So there were quite a few staff that struggled a little bit. Yeah, yeah. It's quite surprising how much things have changed just in general over 6 years. You know, how much technology has just become so much more part of our lives. And yeah, so I think in those days there were still quite a lot of staff that, support staff that didn't use computers that often. So these iplanit experts who were there and able to coach the rest of their teams, and then we knew that iplanit was already working in those projects. So that's what we did initially, and we designed a workshop where we had, and we still run this workshop as well, where half the workshop is talking about what is iplanit, why do we use it, what's the difference between outcomes and actions, because that's all really key to understanding the system. And then the second half of the workshop is a practical workshop upstairs with computers, and there are managers that, there are lots of managers that coach people to go through all the basics of iplanit. And so yeah, that's how we run it, and that's how we've continued to run it. So we run it in line with the staff inductions. When new staff come, everyone gets trained up.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a really good process at the minute of, like you say, when new staff come in, they're able to then be coached on how to use iplanit and use it well, and use it as it should, as it's intended to be used.
Yeah, yeah, we have got separate, so that's the basics of iplanit, and then we also have separate coaching sessions for managers on how to use the specific manager tools on iplanit, if you like, so the dashboard and the reports. So we have that as well. But yeah, everyone now attends that workshop.
So we've talked about the staff and the managers that have been trained to use iplanit. So how did you approach it with the people that you support?
Okay, so the people that we support, a lot of the people we support, especially in 2010, are people with learning disabilities in supported living services, and a lot of the people there are people that are of an older generation. So a huge amount of the people we support weren't didn't really engage with iPlanet, I guess, because it's a computer-based system. It's not something that they sort of naturally had an attraction to. But then the people that we found were more interested in in iPlanet were the younger people that in community support services, so with milder learning disabilities and younger people, because I think younger people, obviously technology is so much more a part of their lives than it has
It's
been
in
for
their
older
everyday life now,
generations.
isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. You know, most people have smartphones now, and so yeah. So what we did was initially we ran these drop-in sessions with a volunteer, and then when staff became more and more confident with iPlanet, then staff support people we support with using their iPlanet account. So that's still happening today. But we did, with the plan, we really realised quite early on that we wanted iPlanet accounts to be rich and meaningful before we had a big push to engage people we support, because of course if there isn't anything on there of that, you know, that means something to the person, then it's not going to be that interesting for them to see. So we've got to a stage now where we've got loads of images for people to have a look at, and their outcomes really are of good quality, and they're rich and meaningful. So that I guess in a sense we focused more on the staff and getting the staff up and running with iPlanet before we wanted to do a big engagement project of people we support.
Brilliant, thank you for that. So, with everything that you've just said in mind, how did 3Cs make sure that iPlanet became embedded in your support services?
Okay, so we had these really key milestones as we were in the implementation process, but we used lots of strong messaging around iPlanet. So we had one phrase that we used, which was, if it hasn't been recorded on iPlanet, it hasn't happened, and we followed this through with staff. So what we were saying was, if you've supported someone to do something, or if someone's achieved something, this must be recorded on iPlanet, otherwise it's considered as it hasn't happened, it's not verified as evidence. And
yeah,
I think
that's
that
very
more
important.
and more, yeah, and just kind of reinforcing that message more and more meant that staff knew that it was inescapable, as I said earlier, that they had to record it on iPlanet, because that was the source of all of our information around people's support. We also had, we realised fairly early on that staff, one of the resistance areas for staff was that they felt like it was more work, and I think a lot of providers probably find this as well, that it's another system, it's another thing that support staff have to do, and when are they going to do it? Is this duplication? So we had a phrase we used which was, iPlanet is core, not more. So what we were saying was, this has become the system that we use for people. So as we've gone through, through the years, we've tried to hone iPlanet as being the place where we record everything, and we're still trying to develop that. So there are certain systems that we're reviewing and wondering whether, instead of doing them on paper or the current system we use, can we put that onto iPlanet? Because we don't want to duplicate people's work. We don't want people doing things twice. So that's why, it's really important that iPlanet becomes the place where you record all of this stuff.
Yeah, because like any organisation, it is really important to have the staff on side, so to speak.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's not going to work. I think we always accepted that there were staff that, these staff that were technophobes, that either don't want to or wouldn't want to, or or couldn't. But we accepted that from the beginning, but at the same time we have this expectation that all staff must use iPlanet. So we use the login data, for example, and in supervisions, managers will talk to staff that haven't been logging in to iPlanet enough, why haven't you, and questioning it. It's just always on the agenda. It's on, we have an iPlanet section in supervisions. It's a performance management area. So obviously on the other side, there's the staff that are doing really well with it, and that we have this reward and recognition scheme where staff that are really excelling and really supporting others to use iPlanet do get recognised for that, and we have team awards around that, and the people that they support also, you know, have awards, and the staff that are linked to that have awards. So we're constantly bringing up that iPlanet is just fully part of, you know, the culture at 3Cs. So yeah, we started the Celebrating Success Awards in 2010, where people we support are awarded for their achievements, you know, be it just starting to go for walks every day, or the big stuff like going on holiday to America, or achieving something really big, because obviously, as we all know, it's the small things can be a big thing for people as well.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Yeah, and we use iPlanet, and again we use iPlanet as the evidence for that. So if people have been nominated for awards but that evidence isn't on iPlanet, then we essentially discount it in a way to try and encourage staff to make sure that everything is recorded on iPlanet. So just like little incentives, and we use, I think it's been 2 or 3 years now that we've been doing our iPlanet tweets, where we tweet about people's success stories with pictures of them out and about, and that all comes from iPlanet as well. Again, just keeping in view that iPlanet is a way of celebrating people's achievements.
Yeah, I think you've got a really good structure in place. You know, it's promoting inclusion. You're able to motivate your staff in the way that you're approaching iPlanet, and I think you've done a really fantastic job so far.
Thank you. Thank you.
So going back to, we spoke about the implementation of a new system. So I think it'd be interesting, obviously for myself and for, you know, attendees that we have today, is just to know more about the challenges and the obstacles that you faced throughout the process and how you actually overcame them.
Okay, so obviously I mentioned a little bit about the IT infrastructure. You have to have the IT access to be able to use it, of course, and also the IT skills of staff and resistance to change. So there was a big change management project, if you like, that was part of the iPlanet implementation, and I talked a little bit about what we did with that. But also there was, I think I mentioned briefly, but one of the areas that we struggled a bit with was the time to do iPlanet. So in our supported living services, there's more time for staff to use it because of the nature of the service. But with services like community support service in particular, staff are often going to support someone there. They might have 2 or 3 sessions in one day, and they might have as little as 2 hours with one person, and then they're travelling on to see someone else. And it was that service in particular that struggled with finding the time to record people's progress on iPlanet. And so what we did was, it maybe, again, I think it's a couple of years ago now, is we bought tablets. Now all of our projects have access to tablets, but in particular community support has a number of tablets that they can use when they're travelling from one session to the next, and they use that time. And obviously because we're in London, there's a lot of time spent on buses, and whilst they're on the bus, support workers are able to record what the person's been achieving since they've just seen them. And that's made a huge difference. And actually I was talking to the manager of community support services just yesterday, and she was saying that that's really brought on the quality of people's accounts. The richness of the outcomes has really changed because the staff are just on there more often, but it's also meant that the staff have increased their IT skills. So it's had this other benefit as well, and it's just about that regular access. So it's just about finding ways that you can overcome that. You know, how can you ensure that your staff are able to access iPlanet as often as possible? So that's one of the struggles that we had.
Yeah, and I think obviously, you're using iPlanet as a system, but you're also providing tools for your staff to use the system, which goes
Yeah,
a long way, doesn't it, really? Because without the tools, you can't use the system.
yeah, yeah. And also, I think it's an area of, it's what's been great is that I think the number of staff back in 2009, 2010 that weren't great on computers have now just, because it's just a requirement to use iPlanet, they're having to go on computers. Their skills have increased hugely over those years. So that, yeah, as I said, there's always going to be a small pocket of staff that struggle a little bit, but on the whole, things have changed dramatically over the 6 years that we've had it.
Yeah, I mean, and going back to that, if, you say that, you started 6 years ago, but when you think about how you work today, what kind of information is actually readily available from iPlanet to 3Cs, and how and why do you use it?
Yeah, okay, so obviously we've had it for, it'll be 6 years in July, and we have a lot more information available. So one of the things that we started to use, once we got to grips with outcomes and we felt that we were, staff were really recording good, meaningful outcomes for people, and one of the ways that we did that was that we always have regular quality audit checks on people's iPlanet accounts. But yeah, so once we knew that was in place, we started to look at what other areas we could start using. So sort of looking at the potential of the different areas of iPlanet and how could we make it work for us at 3Cs. So the profile information area, I think, is really rich in data, and it's so easy to produce a report on, and it's like a database really. And what we had been doing previously to using iPlanet as the database, we didn't have a centrally held information about everything about people. Yeah. So we may have had, like, who we were supporting in one area, on a spreadsheet, but we wouldn't have also had included in that all the social inclusion information. So who of those people are in employment, volunteering, and all the compliance type information. So when did someone last have their person-centered plan reviewed? When did they last have a risk assessment reviewed, and that kind of stuff. So that's what's, I think, fantastic about iPlanet, is you can hold all that information together, and as long as you know that that data is accurate, you can use those reports, and we use those reports on a quarterly basis. But to get to that point, we had to do quite a big project around making sure that staff were, because you're relying on staff updating that information. Yeah, so again, just embedding that into the practice. So I think what we did initially is we had clear targets and milestones and expectations that managers would update the profile information as and when they needed to, and then we would use the reports from iPlanet, and we would compare it to what we knew of people we supported. And at the start there was discrepancy between the two, and we would show that at managers' meetings. So we would show them, look, this is what you're telling us on iPlanet, and this is what we know of people we support, and there's this big gap. And so we just worked, I think, probably over about 12 months to make sure that that gap had gone, so that we knew that the data was now accurate on iPlanet. Because I think one of the defaults of people's accounts on iPlanet for us is that their nationality is American. So we knew for sure, because we knew that we only supported a couple of American people, but at the start it was telling us that we were supporting like 50 American people. So we knew that we knew that people weren't changing that information. So that's been fantastic, because now we use that data to report quarterly. We use it in our reports to the board. We use it to for our KPI information, our targets around people being in volunteering and so forth. And like I said, the compliance information.
Easier for you to access using iPlanet than just staying paper-based, because it's there. It's at the touch of a button, isn't it?
Yeah, it saved us a huge amount of time because there was so much information gathering every quarter. So say with the social inclusion information, I know that our social inclusion manager was having to go to all the different managers to find out, who was doing this, who was doing that. Who was in paid employment, who was in part-time employment, who was volunteering, who was doing work placements. And it took a huge amount of everyone's time in the social inclusion team to do that. Whereas now, because we put the work in to make sure that it was so part of people's regular work that they update that information, we now have gained so much more time back because we just know that that information is accurate. And yeah, we can just produce the report. There's a little bit of time analysing the data and putting it into our board reports, but it's just saved so much time. So it's been really valuable getting that all ironed out and up and running.
Yeah, and I would have thought that then frees individuals up to spend more time with individuals supported, which makes them happier, etc. And it just has a knock-on effect, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But it also, yeah.
Go on, sorry, Debbie.
I was just going to say it also makes you aware of anything, that it keeps in view where areas of the organisation aren't doing so well. So, in the sense of increasing people's support and ensuring that they're getting good support, those figures, even though it doesn't seem like a sort of people-based thing, lots of reports with figures in it, the statistics actually tell you quite a good amount of information about the organisation and the people that you're supporting so that you can improve the support they're having.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? In any organisation, it's all about improving the service that you're offering.
Yeah.
So obviously with all the hard work that you've put in, obviously endless hours, weeks, months, years now, so now that iPlanit is actually embedded within 3Cs, what kind of benefits would you say it's delivering on a managerial and people supported level?
Okay, so on a managerial level, I mean, I just sort of referred to that just now about you've got all the data available, and last summer I launched a project that we called Managing Your Projects Easy with iPlanit, which was just basically all about using iPlanit, the dashboard tools, the reports, to be able to stand back a little bit from your projects as a manager and see things from a slightly different perspective. So as well as saving time, because you can look at information all in one place, so you're not having to look at individual accounts, it also allows you to take that step back and look at things slightly differently and see why, for example, John might be having 20 outcomes a year, whereas Jane's only got 5, and that. And if you're looking at their individual outcomes, you might miss that difference in the amount of outcomes that people are having because you're looking at the quality of the outcomes.
Yeah.
So that's really changed things, and we're now the project involved me sort of showing people and coaching managers on how they could use the tools and the reports. And what they might use them for, and then we ask them to go off and explore those tools and reports and come back and share as a group, as a big managers meeting, what they use them for and why they found them useful and which particular ones they found most beneficial. And now managers are really encouraged to use those, and they're starting to use them more regularly, so that's a great thing. Also, I'd say from the person side, what's really good again about iPlanit is that you can see, we feel, because of where we're at with iPlanit, that when you look at someone's account on iPlanit, it really does reflect the quality of the support they're getting. So the richness of the outcomes, the images that have been uploaded, it really does reflect whether the person's getting good support or not. So it's this real insight into, are we supporting the people in the right way? And on the other side, if someone isn't getting the best support, you can see that, if they aren't having a variety of outcomes, as a manager, you can look into that and ask the questions, why isn't this person getting out and about? Why aren't there pictures of this person? working towards their outcomes, and it just makes sure it's that connection between what a manager can see and use the system for and the support that the person's getting.
It's helping you to keep your finger on the pulse, isn't it, really? It's giving
Yeah.
you the benefit of, yes, you know that it's working well, but it's also letting you know where it's not working so well, and then you are dealing with that straight away, and before you know it, things are starting to improve again in that area as well.
Yeah, yeah. I had to do we had an iplanit strategy, an iplanit strategy day. It was a 3Cs strategy day last December, and I had to do a presentation on iplanit and what were the benefits, and some of the people there were board members and managers. And one of the things that I was thinking about when I was putting it together is visibility, that it just allows so much visibility in so many ways, and with that is transparency. So it's visibility of the great stuff that people are achieving. So it allows you to see really what people are getting from their support, which is fantastic for them. It's great for their families who do, some of the family members that that we have at 3Cs have access, they have guest accounts and they can see what people are getting up to, so they can check, are our loved ones getting the support that we want them to get. It gives you visibility from a chief executive's level. For staff, it means that, like I said before, that they can be recognised for the support that they're enabling people to have. It's just this great way of being able to view everything in one place.
Yeah, and it certainly seems that 3Cs are benefiting from it, that's for sure. So, just to summarise then, Debbie, from a project manager's view, what would be your recommendation for other organisations starting out with iplanit? What are the key areas and suggestions for, I don't know, say a successful iplanit implementation?
So I'd say that, you know, it's probably come across that we've invested a lot of time and energy into making it work, and that's vital. You don't, the more you put in, the more you get out of it, and we've really felt that over the years, because the longer that we have it and the more we've put into it, the more data, the more benefits that we've seen come out of it. We can see that, you know, so for example, we can see now, we can compare people's outcomes from 2010 to now, for example, and see how people have progressed over time, and there wouldn't have been an easy way to have done that before. In terms of the rollout, I would say definitely starting small. I mean, that worked for us. Starting small, you know, doing a pilot and then building on, you know, focusing on one or two areas on iplanit, because I think if you go at everything in one go, it's just very overwhelming for staff, and you don't want to swamp them, you know. And also, I perhaps, you know, what's made things work at 3Cs as well is that Jo, you know, when I was her EA still, and then since then just coming back as the iplanit project manager, she's dedicated my time, so I've been able to look at the development of how we use iplanit, and how we want to change the system if we wanted to change the system, but also that even though I'm the iplanit person, we've made sure that staff have owned what they need to own on it, because that very easily people give excuses about, you know, it should be that person doing it, but actually taking ownership of it and seeing the benefits for them as staff members. Yeah, and just kind of accepting that, you know, it evolves over time, that you might start out with some intentions and things change over time, and the system changes over time as well and evolves and improves, and just rolling with that. You know, I think us being quite accepting of the challenges and just trying to think of ways around it really helped.
Yeah, and I think obviously being persistent as well, you know, it's not giving up. I think that's been a key as well, you know, because it's not easy, like I said, implementing a new system, but I think the approach that you put in place from day one has reaped rewards, definitely.
Yeah, I think that, you know, Jo as the chief executive, and myself just being so behind it and quite passionate about it, has obviously helped to push things along and keep people motivated, and you know, and focusing on the successes, you know, focusing on the achievements and what we've really got out of it, and bringing it always back to people, you know, what is it that they're achieving and how has it changed things for them. And so yeah, that I think that's what's led to us feeling like we're really successful and that it's fully embedded.